Hey everyone, what's up? How's it going? This is Finite MTG, and today, you guessed it, I'm bringing you all yet another Chaos Draft, except unlike the typical Chaos Drafts I'm bringing you, which are from my Twitch stream, this one I did not stream on Twitch. I figured, well, it's okay if I don't record one of these, right? And, well, I guess I learned my lesson because now I'm recording it anyway. So, with that aside, let's dive into the picks. And pack one, pick one. Here we've got a nice pack of Ultimate Masters. It's a sweet and powerful set. And our rare is Reanimate, which, my experience with the card is that it is a Vintage Cube staple, very powerful card in that format. In Chaos Draft, regardless of how good it's going to be, it's certainly going to be weaker than it would be in Vintage Cube. You just can't really anticipate or plan on doing broken, busted things with it. The closer to kind of a Disentomb or Raise Dead it is, like the weaker the effect is. So the question is going to be, how can we get something really good back? Whether that's something like really expensive, maybe it's not even something from our graveyard, but sort of this question of how are we going to turn this into something that's better than just a Raise Dead, which there's a chance that it could be really difficult to do that, but it's pack one, pick one. Don't think I've ever started a draft with literal Reanimate before, and yeah, decided what the heck, let's try it out. Honorable mention for me, I think, would be Snake Umbra from this pack. Powerful card in aggressive or assertive decks, and it's going to be able to provide you some card advantage while also protecting your threats. So Snake Umbra is one that I'm a big fan of here. All right, pack one, pick two. Now, if I wanted to stay kind of married to the Reanimate and just take a black card, I'd be looking at, I think, the Vengeful Reaper. Kind of an interesting combination of keyword abilities, Flying, Death Touch, Haste, 2-3 for 4 mana. With all of those, it seems like a pretty reasonable deal. I assume the card is good in Chaos, but I decided I'd rather take the card I consider to be the best in the pack, and that is Demon Bolt. I don't stay as married to my first pick this way, but I think Demon Bolt and Reanimate are both splashable. This is just a totally solid removal. No real reason not to take it at this point, in my opinion. All right, pack one, pick three. Got a very weak pack of the original Innistrad, and looking through this pack, there's not really anything that stands out to me as particularly powerful, but eventually my eyes do settle on Harvest Pyre. I've actually played a good amount of the original Innistrad format, where Harvest Pyre is kind of clunky, because if you get multiples of it, you could end up overtaxing your graveyard pretty easily. However, in Chaos Draft, that is not so much of an issue. It's not like you're going to necessarily get like a ton of Delve cards or something like that. So Harvest Pyre, even though it might not look especially powerful, if like me, you're used to it in a different context, I think for this draft, it's going to be totally solid. So happy enough to take that from this one. All right, now pack one, pick four. Somehow I'm able to find a card here that ties the room together from this pack of M13, and that is Rummaging Goblin. Puts large creatures, if I want, into the graveyard to reanimate them, but can also fuel the graveyard for the removal that I just picked up, the Harvest Pyre. So yeah, that is going to be my selection here. And, even though 3 mana for a 1/1 might not fly in modern day retail limited, Rummaging Goblin and cards like this, Merfolk Looter would be another example. These cards can be very, very powerful effects, especially in a slow, grindy format like Chaos Draft. So happy to get something like this, not a particularly replaceable effect either. All right, pack one, pick five. We've got a pack of Apocalypse here. And man, this is not the best pack of Apocalypse ever. There are a lot of unplayables in this one, and just cards that are tricky to cast. But, given the choice between the two, I'd rather take the card that is tricky to cast. And for me, that'll be Ebony Treefolk, the card I consider to be the best in the pack. As always, of course, it's got that 3 mana for a 3/3 rate that I love so much, but it's also got a shade ability to pump itself up, and I do think Ebony Treefolk is a bona fide, very powerful threat. Happy enough to take it, and now I'm thinking it's possible that we could be red, black, splash green. Obviously, green is going to lend itself more toward being a fixing color than black would be. So we could be red, green, splash, black, splashing for the Ebony Treefolk, obviously, and for the Reanimate. And now we get another pick here that is going to push me in that direction, and that is going to be Gruul Guildmage. This card I think is very, very powerful. Specifically, the green activated ability. It's just got that threat of activation that makes combat so hard for your opponents. Sometimes the red ability can be decent too. You know, if you're able to finish them off or threaten to deal some last points of reach damage. But overall, Gruul Guildmage, really good card. There's not too much else going on in this pack. I mean, I am a fan of Wild Size, but, you know, Wild Size requires me to be in green, and the stronger color to be in for the Gruul Guildmage is green anyway. So now I am more strongly considering being red and green and splashing black. All right, pack 1, pick 7. So this is weird. So you might recall the card that I mentioned as the honorable mention the first time around from the Ultimate Masters pack. By the way, we are drafting with 6, so the wheel is 7 picks in here. Is the Snake Umbra. So Snake Umbra, yeah, I did have pegged as kind of the second best card in the pack. So I am very strongly tempted to take this here, but I kind of go back and forth. I'm really not sure. The other card I'm considering is Brazen Scourge, which, you know, I do think is weaker. Once again, it's a 3-mana 3/3, and this one has haste, so big fan of this 3/3 as well. But ultimately, what ends up making my decision for me is the fact that I can play Gruul Guildmage, I can play Rummaging Goblin, Harvest Pyre, and Demon Bolt. I can play all these cards if I am red, whereas if I'm green, it doesn't actually unlock that many extra cards for me. Right, the Gruul Guildmage, that's something that would be in my red deck anyway. The Ebony Treefolk, I would kind of need to be in black for that. So because, you know, it's just not clear to me that I'm in green, even though I would like to be for something like a Snake Umbra, I do decide to go with the Brazen Scourge here, which ends up being a pretty defining pick for this draft. All right, now pack 1, pick 8. There are a couple cards that stand out to me here. Broken Wings is one of them. Again, if I'm going to be in green, I do think this card is quite solid. I'm not sure that I necessarily want to main deck this, but if nothing else, I do think it is a very strong sideboard card, which, you know, nothing wrong with that. The other option I'm looking at here is a Dogged Pursuit. I do think this card's pretty good, and I do think, unlike Broken Wings, you know, this is a card that you take and intend to play in your main deck. The difference here is that I'm feeling like green is probably a little bit more open than black, so I'm just not sure that I want to necessarily take this and force, well, soft force at least, black for the reanimate, but I do end up deciding to take it over the Broken Wings. All right, now pack 1, pick 9. There are a couple red cards in the pack. You know, red is the color that we are committed to at this point. I'm considering the Night Revelers, I'm considering the Traitorous Blood, and eventually I just decide, man, neither of those cards are even a little bit exciting to me. What if I could just take this opportunity to put some more feelers out into different colors? And again, while it's not the most exciting pick in the world, 5 mana for a 3/3 flyer in the Battleground Geist, I do think this is the best card in the pack, and, you know, I don't think there's any harm in staying open as long as I'm passing cards that I am not going to miss whatsoever. So that is the theory, at least, but that is going to lead to me waffling a little bit more in this draft than I might have otherwise. All right, now pack 1, pick 10. It's a pack of M13 on the wheel. Blood Beckoning is kind of an interesting one. It's not terribly far away from Revenge of Ravens, but it is crucially missing the point of life you would gain when creatures attack you. On the other hand, a card that I had not played with before, but I've played with other members of the cycle, I think, was Ring of Valkas, or Vulcus. This card, I think, is pretty sweet. Whenever you have something like this that's able to put a counter on your stuff repeatedly, it can be really good. You can move it around as well, so start buffing up different things, diversify threats. The only question with this is going to be, am I able to get a critical mass of red creatures? I'm hoping the answer is yes. Red is the color, again, that I am primarily committed to at this point, so fingers crossed, we'll see what happens. All right, and pack 1, pick 11. There is not very much going on in this pack. It's a bunch of unplayables, kind of like the first time around. That said, there is one card that I do find playable here. Unfortunately, it is going to put me into yet another color, at least another color that I could be considering, and that is Squeeze Embrace. Fun fact, Squeeze Embrace is actually my favorite Magic card name, but that doesn't mean that it's necessarily going to find its way into my main deck, so we'll see what happens there. All right, pack 1, pick 12. Got this pack from the OG Ravnica block on the wheel. I think this is Guild Pact. And here I'm just going to pick up a Withstand. I actually do like Withstand quite a bit. It's not terribly hard for this card to be a 2-for-1. And as we continue to sort of go all over the place in this draft, like we just picked up a white card, now there's another one, and all of a sudden Boros is on the table. So really any red color pair could be happening in this draft. And now pack 1, pick 13. There are 2 Ingot Chewers left in the pack. On Draftmancer, originally one of these is foil, but you can't really tell that on Magic Pro Tools. I think I took the foil, doesn't really matter. Okay, and then pack 1, pick 14. Here's an Ice Hide Troll, and 15th, we just get a land. So now on to pack 2. Again, we know that we're in red. We really have no idea what's going on in terms of the secondary color. Black is the color I would like to play. Black is also frequently contested in the Chaos drafts in my server, so we'll see whether or not it comes to fruition. And pack 2, pick 1 here. We have a really nice, easy pick this time, and that's Word of Seizing. Just a powerful red rare. Very similar to Ray of Command, but it is kind of funny. You can steal a permanent, so not sure how often you would not be stealing a creature with this card, but something that you could think about. And Split Second doesn't necessarily matter a ton either, but can get it through counter spells, get it through maybe like activated abilities that have someone sack something. So I do like Word of Seizing. I don't think it's terribly different from Ray of Command, but I'm a big Ray of Command fan as well. All right, and now pack 2, pick 2. Looks like we've got a pack of Nemesis here, and the red cards are, man, they are just absolutely wretched. Flowstone Wall, I mean, not the worst card in the world, actually pretty reasonable defensive card. That said, just really is not what I'm trying to do at this point. And Laccolith Grunt, I mean, this guy is okay. There are worse cards than this, but I'm really just not in a hurry to play this. And I think the card that is best in the pack, I mean, Murderous Betrayal is very cool. I don't know if it's particularly good. It's obviously pretty difficult to play, relatively difficult to activate as well, and you can't do it very many times. But I think the card that's actually best is Seal of Removal, and remember we do have that 5-mana 3/3 flyer in blue. When I said the thing about any red color pair being a possibility here, I was not kidding. So red-blue is now more on the table after taking the Seal of Removal, which, by the way, I do think this is a very powerful effect. I think this is considerably better than an Unsummon. It just sits on the board. Your opponent has to think about it. You don't have to pay mana to hold it up. Yeah, I think Seal of Removal is actually the real deal. All right, and now pack 2, pick 3. Well, this is an awkward one for us because we've got a pack of Karlov Manor, and normally this is a very powerful set. Most of the newer sets are for Chaos, which, that's its own kind of discussion to have, but unfortunately for me, red is the one color that we are committed to, and there are not any real standouts in red. Thankfully, there aren't very many standouts in the pack in general. I think something like Basilica Stalker looks pretty good. Inside Source is a card I'm definitely a fan of. But here, because I don't know whether I would be playing black or white at this point, I decide I do want to just take a card that I can play. It's not the Thinking Cap this time, even though I do like my equipments. This time it's Demand Answers. Just thinking like, I really like some random Tormenting Voice effects. Kind of like Rummaging Goblin, just helps your draws be a little bit more live in the late game, but also helps you in the early game if you're missing lands. And hopefully we'll get something nice and playable back from what is, typically kind of a stronger set. All right, and now, so this is where Magic Flui gets very confused by Chaos drafts. Clearly we're not on pack 3. So we've got a pack here of Legions, the All Creatures set, and I could try the thing that I just did, taking the red card that in theory could make my deck no matter what, but man, Bloodstoke Howler just does not really do it for me. Not particularly an exciting card. I think the best 3 cards in the pack are the ones down here. Patron of the Wild and Tuco Vigilante. Both of these have the potential to sort of be 2-for-1s. Which is sweet. This one I would say is more of a real 2-for-1, whereas having just a 1/1 on top of your Giant Growth, like the 1/1 is obviously less of like a card's worth of material. The Giant Growth is doing the heavy lifting there. And then the other option is Lowland Tracker, which I think this one is pretty sweet. I mean, it's a 5-mana 2/2 first strike provoke, So 5 mana for a 2/2, that obviously is not ideal. But if you're able to buff this up or just draw it at the right time, and your opponent doesn't have removal or whatever, then you can start kind of picking off their smaller creatures. I've died to this card before at the hands of Monsieur Verdu, so that kind of outcome will always lead me to respect a card more, and I did end up deciding to take it here. All right, now pack 3, pick 2. At this point, I'm pretty strongly considering being Boros. I did just take another white card, but again, I'm pretty strongly considering every red color pair. So even though I do think Steadfast Armasaur would be quite a solid one for a Boros deck, at this point I'm just thinking like, what the heck? What if I just take any red card, because that is a lock to make my deck. And Nest Robber, it's not the worst. It's a Goblin Piker with haste, and I am looking for 2 drops at this point, so you could do worse than a Nest Robber. All right, and now on to the next one here. We've got a pack of Avatar, and this one, I mean, there are some decent cards. This is another set where, like, most of the cards, it feels like, are just absolute bangers for Chaos Draft. And I am considering something like Barrels, which, maybe I could have considered this a little bit more highly. There's the Battle Fan, which is somewhat appealing because I am looking for 2 drops, right? But in the end, I decide here that I'm interested in taking the Mongoose Lizard. I don't think I have too many finishers at this point. 6 mana for a 5/6 Menace is totally solid, comes in and pings something as well, so that's not too bad in Chaos Draft. But maybe most interestingly, it's got Mountain Cycling, and going all the way back to pack 1, pick 1, where we took Reanimate. This is something that we could potentially do with that Reanimate. Turn 2, Mountain Cycle the Mongoose Lizard. Turn 3, Reanimate it. Boom, there's a 5/6 Menace. What are you going to do about it? All right, now pack 4, pick 1. So this is an interesting one. Nightshade Assassin kind of looks a decent amount like Necrotal. Unfortunately, the problem with the Nightshade Assassin is it is going to require you to have a bunch of black cards in hand to really do anything. It is also a double black card itself, so pretty committal card to black. And even though there is a decent chance I would play black, I just don't know what the chances are that I would have like multiple black cards in my hand at the time that I'm playing this. On the other hand, Nantuko Shaman, yes, it is somewhat committal similarly, because ideally you do really want double green for this card. But I think this card's great, whereas the Nightshade Assassin, sometimes you're able to get the 2-for-1 with it, sometimes not. Nantuko Shaman, as long as you have the double green, that's pretty much all you need to get the 2-for-1 with this card. So I'm a big fan of the Shaman, and now all of a sudden even Gruul is back on the table. All right, in pack 4, pick 2, I was interested in the Murderous Betrayal beforehand. We're thinking about whether or not black could be a possibility here, but I just need to make playables. I am worried that I'm just going to have a bunch of junk that I can't really put into my deck, so I'd rather take at least some junk that I could play, and that would be the Lacolith Grunt here. All right, and now on to the next one. The Karlov Manor pack comes back, and man, this one is a lot tinier than the pack of Nemesis, huh? Well, I'm just trying to find any playable, and I actually do think Thinking Cap could have been pretty solid for me. I am a fan of Cerebral Confiscation as well, but here I decide to go with the Gearbane Orangutan. The reason that I went with this card is, I mean, clearly I'm not shying away from the Grey Ogres at this point in the draft. But I mean, this one does have some upside as well. It's got, the Manic Vandal text. It can block flyers in a pinch. So we'll see. If nothing else, I do think it's better than the Lacolith Grunt. All right, and then speaking of Grey Ogres, now onto the wheel here from the Legions pack, and we get this Bloodstoke Howler, which we did pass the first time. I don't necessarily want to play this, but once again, it is kind of clearing that low bar of the Lacolith Grunt, or at least that's the way that I evaluate it. So, you could do worse. And now pack 5, pick 2. Here I'm looking at taking the Shipwreck Looter, but I'm thinking, I already have a Piker. What if I just want like some larger bodies? I end up going here with the Headwater Sentries, which does have the same stat line as everyone's favorite Wishcoin Crab. So now, kind of considering whether or not it could still be on the table. Who knows? We certainly do not know for sure at this point. All right, then Now onto the wheel for the Avatar pack. Just going to snap up this Kyoshi Battle Fan. No need to think about this at all. Pretty happy to get this thing back and somewhat surprised that it didn't go a little earlier. And now here, these cards are all unplayable. I think I took Glass Asp because, I mean, it's at least a creature. Here, I think I took Fog Patch. It really doesn't matter. It's just more unplayables. And then now on to pack 3. And thankfully, even though we've been really all over the place in this one, I was not very happy with how I drafted this. In fact, at the time, I was like, oh my gosh, it's a good thing I didn't record this one because I'm just waffling all over the place. Well, thankfully, again, red is the one color I know I'm playing. And in this pack of Darksteel, we get Fireball, which has to be one of the best possible red cards that we could have hoped for from this pack. And I am delighted to pick it up here. So that is all I need to say about that. And now onto this pack here of Weatherlight. Like Darksteel, this is a pretty old and not super powerful set, but I do manage to find a good card that I can always put into my deck, and that is Fireweb. So 2 mana to turn a creature into a pinger, but nice little upside on there. You can also sack the Fireweb to do an additional ping. So this thing is going to keep your opponent's X1s down. It can pressure them if you're in a board stall, but in a pinch, you can trade this thing for an X2. You can cash it in if your creature is getting removed, something like that. All right, and now on to this pack of Planar Chaos, and this is where we have our real big decision. And one of my favorite cards, card that, in my opinion, absolutely should never have been printed at common, Saltfield Recluse, is in this pack. I've taken this card highly many times. I try to speak highly of the effect when I can because, people should not be passing a card like this if they can avoid it. And I'm strongly considering taking it, but there is one little wrinkle here. So Saltfield Recluse, you may have noticed, is a rebel. There is another rebel in the pack, the Wrathy Trapper, and on top of that there is also a rebel Searcher, the Blight Speaker. So, in other words, I'm thinking, what are the chances if I take one of these rebels that I can wield the Rebel Searcher? And that plan works significantly better with one of these rebels than the other, and that one would be, of course, the on-color one. So in other words, I'm thinking, as cool as it would be to take my homie, the Saltfield Recluse, I'm thinking, yeah, Wrathy Trapper might just make a little bit more sense. If I can take this, wield a Blight Speaker, that could be really good for me. And even the random Blight Speaker sort of pinging ability of players, even that can start to matter depending on exactly how aggressive I can get and how much I'm pressuring my opponent's life totals. So in the end, I do decide to go with the Wrathy Trapper. I figure, what the heck, I have the Reanimate. Let's try to make something happen. Who knows whether or not I'm going to really have enough black cards to justify this, but if nothing else, I should at least get hopefully 2 playables out of this Planar Chaos pack. I do need playables pretty badly at this point. All right, next is this, I think, a pack of Shadowmoor or Eventide. I gotta brush up on those set symbols. But anyway, we've got a pack here that doesn't seem particularly powerful to me. River's Grasp, I think, is quite nice if you have both access to blue and black mana, which at this point, don't really see how I would have access to blue. On the other hand, there's a card in the pack that can provide you with access to the different colors, and that is Scuttlemutt. This card I think is quite solid. It's just kind of a rainbow mana dork. Not expecting the creature color shifting ability to be especially relevant. But this is one where, I don't know. I think this card was later upshifted to uncommon, which is not a surprise because, it's a pretty desirable effect. And speaking of that, I'm surprised to get it passed to me here in what appears to be otherwise a pretty underwhelming pack. So happy enough to take my Scuttlemutt for sure. All right, and now a pack of Odyssey here. No real standouts or bangers in this pack. If they were there, they probably were taken earlier than this. But there is at least a playable for me, pretty much committed to Rakdos at this point. And Dusk Imp, while it is a little bit shy of a Windrake, is still going to be good enough. It'll get the job done, and I'm happy enough to take it here. All right, and now I've got this pack of Tarkir Dragonstorm. I've got a pretty interesting decision here. For a minute, I'm looking at this Rescue Leopard. I was speaking pretty highly earlier of the Rummaging Goblin, and this thing also has a Rummaging ability. And it's a 3 mana 4/2. Those are like pretty solid stats. Remember all the gray ogres that I was looking at earlier? So I'm thinking about this, I'm considering it, I'm really close to taking it, and then at some point I'm just thinking, well, ultimately, it does just trade down for other X2s, or 2/2s rather. And on the other hand, there's this Venerated Stormsinger card that I've never played before, but it's a hill giant that makes a 1/1 and then also drains your opponent when it dies, or when the 1/1 that it makes dies, or anything else dies on your side of the board. So I'm thinking it does seem like I'm leaning aggressive, possibly trying to burn some opponents out. I've never played with this before. Let's take it and try it out. And now the Darksteel pack on the wheel. Man, it's always so rough when you look around one of these packs and it's like there are just almost no playables. But we actually do manage to get something that I think is not too embarrassing here in the Oxida Golem. So if you have 2 mountains in play, this thing is going to cost 4 mana, so 4 mana for 3/2 haste is okay. And then I am pretty heavily in red at this point, so if I somehow have all 3 mountains, let's say by turn 3, then I can have a 3 mana 3/2 haste, and that is actually quite a decent rate that's even held up, I would say, in modern times. So the Oxida Golem, I think, is pretty easily the best card in the pack, and yeah, quite happy to get 2 playables out of a pack of Darksteel. All right, now this pack of Weatherlight comes around, and man, there's still just pretty much nothing in here. I could take Cinderwall, but I just don't really imagine myself playing this or doing anything with it. So eventually I decide to take Mana Chains. It's a pretty clunky removal, but it does eventually turn into one. I figure, I don't anticipate splashing this, but I do get to kind of hate draft, remove something that seems at least okay from the pack. All right, and then we do get the pack of Planar Chaos back. One thing I didn't mention before is that I also had my eye on the Skirk Shaman, which effectively has Intimidate, I guess. 3 mana for a 2/2 Intimidate is pretty interesting, pretty appealing. But remember, even if this guy has Evasion, I've already got more than my fair share of Grey Ogres. And we're very excited to try to do the Blightspeaker Wrathy Trapper thing. The only problem with this is ideally you would have multiple rebels to search for, because it can be kind of easy to let's say draw the Tapper and then you draw the Blightspeaker, and it's like, well, now I guess I just have a 2 mana 1/1 in my deck with this ability, rather than a 2 mana 1/1 that like tutors out one of your best creatures and then also has this ability. But we can't be overly picky. This is a Chaos draft after all. Getting any rebel synergy is pretty cool. And now I've got this pack on the wheel. And something that I possibly could have taken here is just Smash to Smithereens for the sideboard. It's not terribly likely that I would really want this, but I think it could have been reasonable to take it. Instead, I took the Lone Dragger Giant. This card is okay, but the chances that I play it are quite slim. It's more of like maybe I board this in a really grindy matchup. All right, now the pack of Odyssey comes around. I think here I probably took Seton's Desire. At this point, it's clearly not making my deck. The pack of Tarkir Dragonstorm. Here I took Lightfoot Technique, just an annoying card for me to play against. It's got kind of Feat of Resistance vibes, pretty cheap and powerful effect. And here, these are all basically unplayable. I took the Glaive Master, which at least has a pretty decent ceiling. And then here I took Tendrils of Despair. There's technically a world where I could board this in, let's say, versus an opponent with like a lot of pacifisms. And then last but not least, well, actually, no, this is pretty much the least, the Firefright Mage. All right, so fast forwarding here through deck building to our first match, and this is versus the Smasher. We are going to foretell our Demon Bolt on turn 2. He's going to play a Generator Servant, which I'm hoping to ping off with the Mongoose Lizard, and Scuttlemud is hopefully going to ramp us into that Mongoose Lizard. But unfortunately, Smasher does play Curse of Chains on our Scuttlemud. This thing is going to tap down our creature at the start of every turn. But I'm now in a place conveniently where I have 5 mana, right? I'll play a land, I'll have 4 mana from lands, and then I'll have 1 mana on upkeep here from the Scuttlemud. So because of that, my plan is now to play the Demand Answers, and because this thing is not doing me that much good, I can just go ahead and sack it to the Demand Answers, to draw 2 cards, play my land, and then probably play the Rummaging Goblin here. But I draw Brazen Scourge, and now much happier to just try to be aggressive here than play the Rummaging Goblin. I can do this later. And he's going to sack the Generator Servant, and he's going to get aggressive as well. So now Hasty, Rescue Leopard, and Messenger Hawk coming in. I'm going to Demon Bolt the Rescue Leopard. I've drawn my Oxida Golem. Now we are... now this is pod racing, I should say. And he's going to Firebolt away my Golem, and we have 6 lands, so it's time for the Mongoose Lizard pinging face. He's at 7 life. He's going to Sting Scourger my Lizard back to hand, and this is kind of an interesting spot. So I'm just going to replay my Mongoose Lizard. I assume he has some kind of counterspell here for it. But note that because he has Sting Scourger and Messenger Hawk, I don't really have a great attack with my Brazen Scourge. I would just be trading for one of these two. And even more notably than that, he hasn't paid the Echo yet for the Sting Scourger. So this would tie up 4 of his mana just to keep a 2/2 in play. So this would be basically a horrible attack. So there's no way I'm going to make that attack right now. So he does have the counterspell, unfortunately. And I'm just going to pass the turn holding the land in hand because I do have Rummaging Goblin. And he does pay the Echo, passes the turn. So now I'm in a pretty interesting spot. So I drew Fireball for turn. And then here I had, 7 total mana, so unfortunately that's only enough for 6 damage. So the question is, how do I deal the extra damage? Well, I think I've got an idea. So far, my plan is to equip the Kyoshil Battle Fan or whatever to the Brazen Scourge, giving it 4 power, meaning that if the opponent double blocks, now I'm trading for both of these, and then I can just play land, play my Rummaging Goblin, have a couple 1/1s in play after the dust settles, and obviously a Fireball in hand as well, and a Battle Fan. So now he's going to flash back the Firebolt on the Rummaging Goblin. That is the appropriate amount of respect, in my opinion, for a Rummaging Goblin. And I've got a very easy win here with the Fireball, or so I think. So I'm just going to cast Fireball X is 7, which I'm pretty sure this was absolutely not correct. One thing that you might remember, gosh, which pack was that? Was it Nemesis? We actually saw a Daze going around in the draft. So there was just about no reason for me to play into the Daze there because I also just have this 1/1 in play. Very easily could have attacked and then just fireballed him for 1 minus the amount that I did here, 6, I guess. But we'll see whether or not he has the Daze in game 2. All right, now back for game 2. We're looking to play a pretty aggressive match, or so it seems, so he's going to take the play, which makes sense. And he's got nothing to do for the first couple turns. I'm just going to jam my 2/1 haste. Pretty happy to sneak in some points of damage with that wherever I can. And he's going to Volcanic Geyser it for 1. So this is very kind of Fireball-esque, right? It's an instant, and critically it does have another entire red pip in there. But the fact that he's using this, I mean, it probably says a lot about his hand. It doesn't say anything for sure. It might mean that the rest of his cards are more expensive. It might mean that, he doesn't really have other cheap interaction. Could mean that he's missing lands. Like, who knows exactly what it means, but it's a pretty unusual or surprising play, I would say. So then I'm just going to run out my Dusk Imp. He's going to Sting Scourger it. And then I think at this point, yeah, so here's a really nice window to get the Blight Speaker down. Blight Speaker is an interesting one because you can play this on turn 2 and then it's mana efficient, but you're not really doing anything with it on turn 3. Turn 4 is the critical one. That's where you can start actually tutoring with it. But I figure at this point, I'm almost certain that he doesn't have Firebolt in hand because of the way that he spent the Geyser on the Nest Robber. And if he wants to keep the Sting Scourger in play, he has to tie up all 4 of his mana. So in other words, this feels like a pretty good window to sneak the Blight Speaker into play without him hopefully being able to kill it. And then if he doesn't kill it for 1 turn cycle, then I can tutor up my Wrathy Trapper. So he is in fact going to pay Echo and just go for the attack. And then I think, oh yeah, so I actually decide to get greedy here, which I'm not entirely sure how I feel about this. I think my reasoning at this point was the Stormsinger is a better use of my mana. If something goes wrong for either the Stormsinger or the Blightspeaker, I do just have the Reanimate. I think that was the main part of my reasoning here, and that's why I'm not like just firing off the Reanimate on the Nest Robber to get some random points of damage in. I want to save it for my high impact cards if possible. And on top of that, if he is going to start spending removal on these guys, then I'm going to start draining him a little bit, so that's not so bad. But he's got Ogre Savant, which is pretty annoying for me. It's going to bounce the Stormsinger to hand. This is the kind of card you expect to be in his hand when he makes that Volcanic Geyser play, by the way. And then here, so at this point, I think I just run out the Stormsinger again, and my plan after that, because I'm at 6 mana this turn, is to play land, have the Dusk Imp for next turn, and then 4 mana as well for the Blightspeaker activation. So, all right. Oh, whoops. Oh, sorry about that. Nope, I was totally wrong about what I did this turn. At this point, I'm feeling like I'm falling really far behind on board, so I recognize an opportunity to cast Fireball X's 4 with 2 damage to each of his creatures, thinking, I don't have to always just have lethal with the Fireball, just clearing the board can also be very nice. And I do go for this, and he does have the daze, so yeah, sorry about that I misremembered what happened there, but yeah, now, unfortunately, I'm in really bad shape. I think it was correct for me to go for this, even though I did kind of suspect that he might have daze in his deck, because it is a really clean 2-for-1. It takes me from being in kind of an unfortunate spot on board to being pretty far ahead if it works. So, but it didn't work. And now I'm at 16, getting hit for 5 down to 11. And he's just passing the turn. I'm not really sure exactly what this means. He's got 3 cards in hand, but I'm very happy that he's just passing. And the really nice thing about the Dusk Imp plan that I outlined earlier is that even though this thing is just a 3-mana, measly 3-mana 2/1 flyer, it does block and trade for a 3/2. So at this point, I'm just trying to protect my life total. In fact, if I was a little bit more committed to protecting my life total, I could have just run out the Stormsinger. But I'm thinking at this point, for some reason, I just feel like I would rather tutor up the Tapper here. And he plays Deduce on his turn, so presumably that was his draw for the turn. It looks like he just kind of had absolutely nothing during the last turn cycle, which was really big for me. We're going to make this trade. Now he's just got a Sting Scourger and tutor up the Wrathy Trapper. And now that I think I'm pretty thoroughly ahead, actually, I am just going to kind of fire off the Spewy Reanimate on the Nest Robber. The only reason I'm doing this is because, we've given him a lot of opportunities to try to kill some of my key creatures, and he hasn't done it, even after drawing a couple cards. Obviously, if I give him enough time, he will eventually find the removal, and then I might kind of wish that I had used the Reanimate differently. But if I take that long, then I could be potentially missing a lot of points of damage from the Nest Robber or whatever here. So, also, because my life total has dwindled this much, I can only get so much value out of the Reanimate. It's not like I'm going to risk like reanimating an Ogre Savant here or something, for instance, right? So getting the Nest Robber, I only lose 2 life, get my 2 damage in immediately, and I'm still in a pretty good place on board. I have the Blightspeaker, the Trapper, the Stormsinger, and I'm counting on the Stormsinger life gain to protect me here. And now Messenger Hawk comes down from him. And I think he's going to, he's going to Cursive Chains my Wrathy Trapper. This is a little bit awkward for him. It does mostly nullify the effect of the Trapper in the sense that I can't tap things on his turn, and that is the best time to activate a Tapper. On the other hand, I can still tap his things on my upkeep, which means I can remove a blocker from him every turn. So pretty far from ideal for him to have to put a Cursive Chains on a Tapper, but it is what it is. So that's why I lock down the Sting Scourger here, and then on my upkeep, I'm going to lock down the Messenger Hawk. And now I'm going to go ahead and attack here with the Stormsinger, which hits him for 4, and then the token is going to die and drain him. I'm leaving the Nest Robber back to threaten the block, or at least represent the block here, and trade on the Sting Scourger, which, if that works, that's great. I get a drain. If something goes wrong, decent chance I get a drain anyway. It's hitting me for 3 here with the Messenger Hawk. Every point of life gain that I have counts. This Galvanic Juggernaut here, which is kind of funny. So now I, once again, get to tap that down on my upkeep. The reason that this is funny is because if I attack with the Storm Singer, then the mobilize 1 token is going to die, which means even though I tapped this thing down already, it will untap itself after combat. But I draw the nuts here, which is in this case a Gearbane Orangutan, which is just going to give me the nice little Manic Vandal here on the Juggernaut. And thankfully, there's nothing that he can do about that. I'm going to attack him here. Once again, hit him for 4. The token dying is going to put him to 1. And then I've got Blight Speaker activation for lethal. So pretty clinical first match there. All right, now time for round 2. We're paired against Aramath, member of the Discord and also stream. And for some reason, my record against Aramath is really quite poor. So anytime I can potentially try to swing things back closer to 50-50, I'm going to jump on that. And I do think my deck is at least pretty solid, but I've seen at least some cards from Aramath's deck, and his looks pretty solid too. And just to slow down and talk about what's going on here in the early game, or the opening, I guess. So we've got an ally token that I suppose I could have attacked into the morph here, but I really don't want to give my opponent any chances to deal me extra damage. I've already taken 4 from this Wanted Scoundrels. I need this thing to die. I'm pretty sure this block is not going to work because I don't think he would make this attack. But that's the reason I left the Brazen Scourge back. I just need something to go right here for me to try to be able to stabilize against, 2 mana 4/3, which is just absolutely massive. But unfortunately, it's not going to work. He's got the Patron of the Wild, pumps his guy up, and now I think I just slam Dogged Pursuit here to gain life, and leaving my ally back as if I'm going to block the Patron, which I wouldn't do. I don't know why he doesn't send with the Patron here. It's not like I'm really pressuring him. I'm pretty sure he's supposed to make that attack. And now there's only one thing that I can really do, which is hold up Word of Seizing and pray. Word of Seizing, if this works, should be spectacular for me. So in classic Rave Command fashion, the only way that I really get a 2-for-1 with this is by using it on his turn after he attacks. He doesn't have to attack with both of these, just one of them needs to come in, but a 4/3, ideally will trade for a 4/4. And if that happens and I get to steal the Wanted Scoundrels, then that means, I steal the Boulder, then that means when the Wanted Scoundrels dies, I still get the 2 treasures, and hopefully I've killed both of his big beaters. So I'm going to respond here, take the Boulder in response to the trigger here. So the Earthbent Land is only a 1/1 rather than a 2/2, and thankfully the Word of Seizing works. And now all of a sudden we are more or less in spectacular shape. He plays an Elderleaf Mentor, totally solid card, but I get to slam my Mongoose Lizard. I have 3 different 1/1s to kill. I figure if I kill the Patron of the Wild, if there's some way he can get this back or whatever, then I could get punished for doing that. If I kill the Plains, it just comes back under his control, so it's not like I deny him a mana. So it feels like killing the Elf token is the right choice. And once again, I am not attacking with my ally. I'm just going to hang out, but we're in a very comfortable spot. Dogged Pursuit is putting some work in. We've got the Dusk Imp and the Rummaging Goblin as well. And now I get to serve here with the Mongoose Lizard, which is looking excellent. And he's going to go for this double block, which is interesting. He pumps up the Bloodthrone Vampire, which, now this is enough to kill the Mongoose Lizard, but I guess he wants to save the Bloodthrone Vampire, which Bloodthrone Vampire is not particularly great on its own, right? Like, it's just a 1/1. It really does require you to have a bunch of stuff to sack. And thankfully, he does have a bunch of stuff to sack for his sake, but I just leave that one alive, and now all of a sudden, there's not very much that it can do, because all his creatures are gone, basically. And then on top of that, I crack a treasure to reanimate the Mongoose Lizard, shoot down the Grimclaw Bats now that he's tapped out of black mana. This is, like, absolutely brutal for him. Realistically, there's just about no possible way he can come back. And I go for the Alpha here. He's going to trade the Bloodthrone Vampire for the ally, or not, actually, because he's got Dark Dabbling. And then, yeah, there's an argument there that I could have and probably should have re-equipped, but it's kind of hard to know exactly how to spend your mana before the turn unfolds, especially when you don't know like what the opponent is holding or really how they could possibly get out of the spot. But little flavor win here. Mark of the Vampire on a Vampire. Airmouth is putting up a fight for sure. We're going to offer the trade here with a 3/1 flyer for the 1/3 reach. He's going to take it. We still hit him for 5 here. And then our plan basically to beat this 3/3 lifelink. I mean, we're not in danger of it killing us at this point, but we do still have the Wrathy Trapper in the deck for the Blight Speaker to tutor up. So that is my plan here. I'm going to crack the treasure to do that, and decided to grow the Rummaging Goblin again. Just randomly thought it could be good to diversify threats rather than the Mongoose Lizard. And he's going to play a Hooting Mandrills, which is expensive but not particularly scary. And for some reason, he decides to concede when I activate my Blight Speaker. I think I have lethal here, so it's not that crazy. Because I guess, yeah, I mean, I could have killed him, I guess. So Dogged Pursuit is going to drain him to 7. Then I can equip the Battle Fan to the Mongoose, and that's 6. And then I also have just a ping with the Blight Speaker, so it's not too crazy to concede there. All right, now on to game number 2. And game number 2, I'm just going to mulligan any 5-lander. It does feel like my deck is pretty aggressive, so I think, I need kind of a minimum of 3 spells in an opener, unless I have like a Rummaging Goblin against an opponent who I'm convinced can't kill it or something. So I'm going to keep this hand, and I have the Battle Fan into Brazen Scourge curve out plan, but unfortunately he does have Plague Witch as I draw Blight Speaker. Plague Witch, very good against me, by the way. And he's just going to play a Phyrexian Rager, which at least means that ally token gets to attack. The Brazen Scourge also gets to attack right now. So just sending in the clowns. He's not going to block anything. And unfortunately, he's just going to pass the turn, which means even if I just attack with the Brazen Scourge into the Rager, he can just shrink it and kill it. Also note that the Blight Speaker is getting a bit worse because now I've drawn the Wrathy Trapper. And he's going to block the ally token. I'm trying to, I guess he's trying to see if he can elicit a trick from me, but I'm not going to play one. He's going to discard pacifism. He's, I think, missing lands and missing colors here, so this makes sense. Just kill the token, preserve the Rager. But now that the token is gone, the Battle Fan is freed up, and my plan here is to try to see if I can make him discard extra cards, not quite for no reason, but, at the very least, he would have to do this right away because, and that's valuable for me because Phyrexian Rager can trade with the Brazen Scourge if the Plague Witch activation is being held up on my turn. But if I equip the Brazen Scourge and play the Blight Speaker, Airmath doesn't know at that point that I have the Trapper in my hand, so he probably has to fire off a main phase kill on the Blight Speaker, and that means the Rager cannot trade for the Scourge anymore. So that's my plan here, just to basically try to see if I can bait him. And I do think it's pretty forced from his perspective to just kill the Blight Speaker, and that's what he does. And he plays a Grimclaw Bats, which does represent a double block on my Brazen Scourge. We're going to play the Stormsinger attack. It seems like we're in decent shape at this point. He has to trade 2 creatures for the Brazen Scourge. He gets drained as well. Now I have Stormsinger versus Plague Witch. But, spoiler alert, things are not going to quite go my way here. I mean, you guys might have noticed that this match has 3 games in it. And here I can't really attack with the Stormsinger because trading it for the Elderleaf Mentor would be terrible for me. I think he just fires off the Mind Rot there to clear my Rummaging Goblin. And now he's got a Hooting Mandrills. I'm just going to play the Dogged Pursuit. It still feels like I'm okay mostly at this point because, the Dogged Pursuit is going to deal some damage to him. He's got Hooting Mandrills, which at this point maybe I'm trading on blocks. Unfortunately, he has Broken Wings to clear my Dogged Pursuit. And now this is where it gets bad because he's been missing lands. So in other words, he probably has a bunch of spells or at least some kind of action in there. My Stormsinger might have to trade with the Mandrills or with the Elderleaf Mentor. Can't really attack. I'm just kind of sitting here leaning super hard on my tapper. I've drawn maybe a land or two too many here to really be in this one. But I do at least have this sequence where I get to tap down the Mandrills and then tap down the Mentor to make one attack, but unfortunately he still just has Dragon Spray. At least I get one extra point of damage out of it. I'm not really sure why he didn't kill my Stormsinger before I was allowed to attack with it, but doesn't matter too much either way. He's down to 9, but gets to hit me for, I think, 9 damage himself, and then flashes back a Morgue Theft. I'm just forced to basically sit here with my Wrathy Trapper, try to stem the bleeding a little bit, and possibly top deck a Fireball. I'm not even sure if top deck Fireball would be good enough, but I do need it right here, right now, pretty much. Otherwise, I'm just cooked. Gets back the Phyrexian Rager. I think actually at this point now the Fireball is good enough. I think before it wasn't, because I have 8 lands in play. I would play a land, and then I would have Fireball X is 8, but he was at 9 prior to playing the Rager, so I actually needed him to play that. But I did know that he had gotten it back with the Morgue Theft, so. And now he plays Skirmish Rhino, and once that comes down, that's a pretty sweet card on the splash. Now I think I have 0 outs. Like, you know, Fireball's not gonna cut it anymore, and if Fireball can't do it, then nothing can. So I just have to play this 2/2. I do get to sack my Battle Fan, which is cool. Sack the Battle Fan to turn the Orangutan into a 4/4. This is like kind of an ideal sort of artifact to sack in this deck. I basically have to make this block with the Orangutan, but now the Plague Witch is going to, you know, deliver the Steel Chair right to my noggin here and kill the Gearbane Orangutan, and now there's absolutely nothing I can do, so I am dead, and we are off to game number 3. All right, now game 3. Once again, we're just going to ship a 5-lander because we need more action than that. And this is a pretty reasonable looking hand. We've got 2-drop into Brazen Scourge once again. And if we find, you know, a 3rd mountain, then we can have a nice cheap Oxida Golem as well. At this point, it doesn't really matter. Any land we draw will cast the Oxida, but we didn't draw land. Looks like, yeah, and then Airmath, unfortunately. I think, I'm not sure whether his hand was keepable. I don't know exactly what he was looking at, but clearly he's missing black and white mana. He's missing cheap plays, and then on top of that, he actually F6'd through his last turn here. So not a real game per se, unfortunately. And his deck did look quite strong to me. But yeah, anyway, we just get to, well, we try to go for the alpha. I guess he's probably just conceded at this point. There's not too much he can do. And I guess it is an attack for 10 as well. All right, now on to the finals. Okay, so game 1 of round 3, we're on the draw. Our trusty Brazen Scourge is here once again. And at this point, even though playing Swamp turns off my turn 3 Oxida Golem, I think it's totally fine and / correct to just develop out my Wrathy Trapper. Patrick's got Silvercoat Lion into Izzet Signet, and we've got hasty Brazen Scourge, Wrathy Trapper getting into the red zone as well. And there's a Windcrag Siege. I don't really know this card, so maybe you guys would like to read it as well. This comes into play. He's chosen Jeskai, and what that means is at his upkeep, he gets a 1/1, and it's going to gain lifelink and haste until end of turn. So that's a little bit annoying because, you know, it's like kind of an endless stream of blockers. That said, I do have this Fire Whip, which is pretty nice. Fire Whip pretty good at dealing with a steady stream of 1/1s. So here, I think turn 4, I'm just jamming the Venerated Stormsinger and then once again going for this attack for 4. But now there's already this haste lifelink goblin that I have to start thinking about. At this point, the play that I make is just develop the Oxida Golem. This thing doesn't have great attacks here because it is looking at possibly trading for the Silvercoat Lion or possibly trading for the Kine Aven. Obviously, this trade would be better for me, but regardless, you know, it doesn't have necessarily a clear way to get in there. So I decide that this is a good candidate for the Fire Whip, and the funny thing about this having haste, obviously you normally are planning on using that to attack, but in this case, the haste is going to give me access to the tap ability right away, so that's kind of nice. And now I think I just get in there with my 2 3/3s, and the nice thing about the Fire Whip in this spot is I can really use it to blow out like most multi-blocks. So if you imagine, like let's say, I don't know, Kenai Aven plus Silvercoat Lion like double block the Stormsinger, I can ping the Lion and then sack the Fire Whip to kill the Lion and the Kenai Aven. Something else that my opponent might have to do in order to kind of guarantee that that block would work could just be triple blocking. That would be relatively annoying for me. But I think for some reason we're not going to see a triple block. I think we just see a chump here. And I guess, you know, the appeal of this play is you do get to eat the tokens, so you sort of gain 1 life from not taking damage from that. But yeah, I do think the opponent did kind of need to triple block, and it would have been fairly annoying for me as well. But I believe this is the last turn of the game, and man, it's a sweet one, so I'm going to slow down to show you guys exactly what happened here. And this is why old templating on some Magic cards can be absolutely backbreaking. So Aven Cloud Chaser, this card is not a May, which, you know, that in itself is going to be a little bit awkward in a deck where like probably one of your best cards is an enchantment. But on top of that, the reason that Patrick's able to play this out here is to try to kill my Fire Whip. The reason I say try to kill the Fire Whip is because just the same way that the Fire Whip can be sacked to finish off like a Silvercoat Lion or whatever, when you sack this, it's not on the board anymore. And because this isn't a May, you would have to target your own Windcrag Siege if the Fire Whip is gone. So that is exactly what's going to happen here. I'm going to respond. I'm going to kill the Silvercoat Lion before the Cloud Chaser can resolve, and then Patrick's going to concede before the Cloud Chaser can enter and blow up his own siege. So again, absolutely backbreaking stuff. All right, and now we are back for game 2 of round number 3. And we've got a nice spell-heavy hand here. We're just looking to draw 1 land, and we did. A little bit light on mountains, but we've got the Mountain Cycler in case we need it. Also one of the nice things about being light on lands. I could have chosen to just Mountain Cycle this immediately to go for the speedy Reanimate, which would be really sweet, right? Like this was one of the reasons I took this card. It's actually even one of the reasons I took Reanimate, because I was thinking about all the land cyclers that you can get in at least the newer packs of Chaos these days. But here I decide, you know, it's a little bit all in for no reason. I can just suspend my Demon Bolt, which is kind of a nice middle of the road play, and I can actually make the same play next turn, right? No reason not to just do this on turn 3, Mountain Cycle into the Reanimate. So we'll see what ends up happening here. Patrick once again has the Izzet Signet, and this time the Errant Doomsayers. And this is just kind of brutal for me as well. Once I do eventually get the Mongoose Lizard into play, now it's going to kill the Doomsayers, but first we're going to play this Orangutan and just blow up that Izzet Signet. So some pretty nice Orangutans for me in this one. And then here's a Starnheim Courser, which note that this guy does have reach as well, so that's not so bad for me. I think I go to combat, just see what's going to happen, then I think the Doomsayers is going to tap down my Orangutan. I missed my land drop here, so that looks to me like the perfect time to Mountain Cycle. And then here I think I just play the Blight Speaker just because it's an efficient use of my mana. And then because the following turn I can then use this to tutor up my Tapper. And then if I draw a land on the following turn as well, then I can tutor up my Tapper and put the Mongoose Lizard into play. So kind of got my game plan set up here. And now the opponent is going to play Raid Bombardment, which is kind of sweet. You know, it's not terribly often that you can make something like this work, and it seems like Patrick probably has at least a decent number of cheap creatures, but it's not really the scariest card in the world. It's going to continue to be something else awkward with the Aven Cloud Chaser in the deck. We're going to take all the damage. No reason to trade the Blight Speaker off here. And looks like post-combat he's got another creature that could trigger the Raid Bombardment in Whipgrass Entangler. And now I did draw land, so I'm going to go for exactly the play that I described. So it's time for Reanimate, getting the Mongoose Lizard back. Yes, losing some life, whatever, but I'm, I spent 1 mana to put a 5/6 Menace into play and kill one of his guys, so if that's not what you wanted to see with Reanimate, I don't know what is. And then I'm just going to pass the turn here, holding up the Blight Speaker ability to grab the Tapper, and I'm just in incredible shape, right? Like I have the Word of Seizing if I need it. I have Fire Whip if he's got more X1s. He's Hellbent. I've got the Demon Volt. And I do kind of get rewarded for waiting on the, at least as far as I can tell, for waiting on the Reanimate play, because he did have the immediate Legion's Judgment. So I got to kind of play all my turns on curve without getting really too disrupted or blown out by that. I still get my 2-for-1 out of the deal as well. So now I find the Tapper, and then here, I think I make a minor kind of misstep here. I should have gone to combat first and then attacked with the Gearbane Orangutan, because my plan here, like, he has almost no resources and I have a ton, like my hand is sick. So this thing at least can threaten to be annoying, just because he can activate it 3 times. He doesn't really have anything else to do with his mana, and it blocks. So I decide I'm going to Demon Bolt this, but I kind of do it at the wrong time. I just fire it off here first. The reason that this is wrong is because he doesn't necessarily activate this if I just go to combat. I mean, he probably does. But I want to spend all my mana here, which means I don't want to pay the 1 to attack with the Gearbane Orangutan. I'm pretty sure that is how it works. Or wait. Can't attack or block unless its controller pays 1 for each cleric on the battlefield. Maybe that's not how it works. There's no longer a cleric on the battlefield, so I probably just missed an attack, but it's not a huge deal. I still have my 2/2 reach up to block the 2/2 flyer. I've got my Tapper as well. Doesn't really matter. So, funnily enough, it looks like I did make a misstep there, and it was a pretty minor one, but it was different from the one I thought. It's one of the reasons it's nice to go review your games like this. And I think this is basically just game over. Oh yeah, I guess there are a couple more turns here if I remember correctly. Just going to attack with the morphs past the turn. And now, whoops, what's going on here? He's going to play the Skin Scare Harpoonist, which you might notice is another 2/2 flyer, which means, again, either of these creatures attacking means I get the clean 2-for-1 with the Word of Seizing, which is now something that I'm actively going for, hence not activating the Wrathy Trapper. I kind of thought maybe he would attack with the Starnheim Courser. Like, it might seem like I clicked through my Tapper activation. It is kind of an attack for 3 because of Raid Bombardment. You got to do something here, right? But he doesn't. I just go ahead and use the Tapper, use the Blight Speaker, and play my land here. And I think, once again, I'm kind of over-telegraphing the Word of Seizing, but this time I'm at least going to tap something down. Funnily enough, I did technically tap down the wrong creature here, because I'm going to tap the Starnheim Courser, but that allows him to attack with a Kinscare Harpoonist, and if he somehow was able to put me on Word of Seizing, he could have targeted his own Starnheim Courser to make this lose flying, so I can't actually get the 2-for-1 with the Word of Seizing. But thankfully, I mean, that would, take some real, like, telepathy or fortune telling, or, just some magical abilities to see that coming. So thankfully, we do still get our 2-for-1 here, which, if I wasn't already super far ahead, that will certainly put me even farther ahead. And now here's Steam Core Weird. There's really no way anything bad can happen to me. Just like in the spot earlier where versus the Smasher, I tried to play a Fireball for X is 4. So I think I can't quite play this to deal 2 to the Steam Core Scholar, 2 to the Sunstriker, and 2 to Patrick. And yeah, I do just have this attack and got a very kind of smooth sailing trophy here with our Rakdos Burn deck with a bit of Rebel synergy. With the Pick 1 Reanimate and Mongoose Lizard plan actually coming together. So despite really waffling during the draft, very kind of clean stuff in games. We drew super well. There's a lot of like 2-drop into Brazen Scourge to just like put a beating on the opponent. But you know, you do have to get a little bit lucky sometimes to get there in the end, and we absolutely did this time. So with all that said, thank you guys for watching. Hopefully you have enjoyed this video. It's been a while since I have recorded something like this for you all, and yeah, hoping that you guys enjoyed the change of pace. And with that said, we'll see you next time. Thanks again for watching.